this is not going to be an ordinary poker vlog. Because this isn't documenting an ordinary session. Today I'm playing 10-25 no limit that often becomes 10-25-50. It's not the type of session that's going to get buried in my stats app and quickly forgotten about. Instead, it's the type that can make or break a year for me. The type that'll put to the test everything that I've learned from playing over the last 17 years. I've been in Northern California for a couple days, celebrating my birthday with the people that I'm closest to. It's great showing my girlfriend around my hometown, but it's hard to fully enjoy it all because my mind has been preoccupied contemplating what's about to happen now. Will the countless hours I spent studying training sites, reading dozens of poker books, going through hand histories with my friends just to gain microscopic edges pay off for me when I needed to the most? The truth is, I don't know. After all, I'm still going to be at the mercy of the deck. The heart is racing, the nerves are going. I buy into the game for $4,000, which is by far the most that I've ever bought in for. There are 2 games running. I'm in the feeder to start, and we're playing 5-handed at this table. Let's do this. Early on, I'm dealt pocket 3s on the button. Onto the gun +1 opens to 100. I call, we're heads up. The flop comes 9-3 deuce with 2 hearts. Starting off with a bang, we flop middle set in the biggest game of my life. Onto the gun +1 leads for 225. It's basically a pot-sized bet. The opponent is a rec player who does not seem like the type that would ever fold an overpair to a raise. If he's betting a lot here, I imagine he has something decent. I make it 600. The player tanks for a good chunk of time. I'd love to see him come over the top. Steady folds. I'm okay with it though. Winning a hand in the beginning of the session does a lot to help settle the nerves. Next we play a $100 bomb pot. These can get costly if you don't run well, and we're doing them every dealer change. I've got 9-3 suited here. It's the first bomb pot of the night. The flop comes Jack-6 deuce. We have some backdoor draws, but that's about it. What's worse is that in the higher stakes games, the first card on the flop is used to determine who pays time for the entire table. Since it's a deuce and I'm in the 2 seat, I have to pay. I don't win the hand and lose additional money on top of the $100 fee. Later I pick up ace-queen offsuit in the small blind. Onto the gun +1 opens to 75. He's been by far the most aggressive player pre-flop. The cutoff calls. I probably have the best hand and have good card removal. I 3-bet to 400. Onto the gun +1 isn't going to let me have it without a fight. He makes the call. The cutoff folds. I'm playing a big pot, heads up, out of position. The flop comes King-Jack-9 with 2 hearts. I have a gut shot straight draw with an over and a backdoor flush draw. It's currently not much, but with all the high cards out there, as a 3-better, I can have all kinds of hands that'll connect strongly on this board. It's possible my opponent could have connected well on this board too. I know he likes to get involved as much as possible though, so you can still have plenty of hands that won't connect at all. I down bet to 275. This is enough to potentially get my opponent to fold his weaker hands like small pocket pairs that are actually beating me, and it allows me to see the turn for a pretty cheap price if somehow I've run into the top of his range. I don't anticipate getting raised since this board is so good for my range, and I may bet this amount with very strong hands too to string my opponent along. The player folds, I risk a small amount to win a nice little pot. Once again I pick up ace-queen, this time I'm in the cutoff. Onto the gun limps in for 25, I raise to 125. The big blind calls, who was the primary opponent in the previous hand. Onto the gun folds, it's heads up. The flop comes Jack-9-4 with 2 diamonds. The big blind checks. I don't have much except 2 overs and a backdoor straight draw. I check back. The turn is the ace of hearts. We make top pair. Despite this being a better card for me as the aggressor pre-flop, especially after I've checked back the flop, the big blind leads for 150. It's basically saying, I know the ace is generally good for you, but I have something amazing. He's representing a 2-pair or better hand. You can also play some draws this way. I call. There's not much sense in doing anything else. The river is the king of hearts. The big blind slows down and checks. I'm glad he didn't bomb it because my hand is somewhat face up, although in his mind I could potentially have ace-king as well. I put him on a big hand or a draw. Most of the draws missed and won't be able to call a bet anyway. For that reason I check.
10 high, it's no good.
The opponent announced his hand without showing in an attempt to get me to turn over my cards and gain information. In smaller games, I might show my cards if it's a small pot, but in bigger games, I'm absolutely not going to do that unless I've got the winner and the opponent shows first. The big blind threw his cards in face down, so I win without having to show mine. I get called over to the main game where I've got pocket aces in middle position. I open to 75. Big blind calls, we're heads up. The flop comes 8-7-4 with 2 clubs. It's pretty connected and overall not bad for what my opponent may have called with out of the big blind. He checks. I've still got a nice pair and at least have the ace of clubs to fall back on if somehow I am beat. I bet 75. The player calls. The turn is another 8. That's not great news. The big blind checks, I check back. The river is the queen of diamonds. The big blind checks again. Probably wouldn't have done that with a hand that has me beat. Feel comfortable going for value, put out a bet of 125. Doesn't take too long before the opponent makes the call. I turn over the rockets, they're good. The player mucks his cards high in the air, and you can see what looks to be a 4. We get called light. The Brado and Charity for lanky white guys gets a little richer. In this one, I've got queen 6 of diamonds in the big blind. The tightest guy at the table opens a 75 from under the gun +1. He's an older dude. The cutoff calls. I defend my big blind. We go 3 ways to the flop. It's queen jack 3 with 2 clubs. We have top pair and a bad kicker like Sam Ficken of the New York Jets. I check to the pre-flop raiser. He bets 75. Cutoff folds. I'm not sure if I'm ahead here, but I'm not quitting just yet. I call. The turn is the deuce of clubs. Flush draws got there. I check. Under the gun +1 continues betting, this time for 100. I feel like I'm getting strung along here. I already mentioned this is the tightest guy at the table, and now he's fired on both streets. I still can't fold. I call. The river is another queen. I've got trips. If I'm ahead, I don't want the opponent to check back if he has something like ace or kings, but those hands can and probably will call a bet. If somehow I'm beat, I'm certainly going to call a bet after potentially checking anyway. Given those two scenarios, betting seems like the most profitable option. I lead for 325. The opponent is thinking about it. I'm rooting for a call. Nope. He puts in a raise to 900. I may play a variety of hands this way. Despite having trips, queen 6 might be the worst of those. At this point, I essentially have a bluff catcher. I'm not sure if this particular player is even capable of bluffing rivers or what hands he'd turn into a bluff. I'm not even sure that he'd raise with an ace-high flush. Feels like we're up against exactly queen jack of spades or pocket jacks. I'm always wrong when I call in these spots. When trying to be more disciplined, I let it go. After losing that one and every bomb pot of the session, I'm stuck 800 before being dealt jack 10 suited in the hijack. Under the gun limps in. I don't see him do this and raise to my standard 75. The big blind calls. Under the gun calls, we're going 3 ways to the flop. It's ace queen 8 with 2 hearts. We have a double gutter. The opponents both check. Once again, it's a flop that's better for my range as the pre-flop aggressor than it is for my opponent's ranges. Plus, I have a hand with a lot of potential. I bet 125. Big blind calls. Under the gun also calls. I imagine they have 1 pair hands at best or draws. I'm not sure that they'll be able to withstand much more pressure if I keep on firing. The turn is the 7 of spades. Both players check. I'm keeping my foot on the gas as long as I still have a draw to the nuts. I fire for 375. That's enough to get rid of the big blind. He folds. Under the gun is sticky. He calls. His range is mostly going to be capped at 1 pair hands. I'm ready to unload the clip as long as a heart doesn't come. The river is the jack of clubs. Under the gun checks. It's a bizarre river that perplexes me. My hand goes from having no showdown value at all to having at least some. I can beat missed flush draws, but do I have a good enough hand to check back? Or should I bomb it and put a hand even as good as ace 10 to the test? I kind of think bombing it is the best option, but ultimately I check back. Under the gun turns over 7-6 of hearts. Firing big was not necessary. The opponent made a pair on the turn to go along with his flush draw, but we made a bigger pair on the river to come out victorious. We win a nice pot, get back to even for the session. Here I've got ace 10 suited on the button. Under the gun +1 limps in. I raise to 100. Big blind puts in a 3-bet to 350. Under the gun +1 folds. I'm not throwing this hand away yet. I call. We're in position and we're heads up. The flop comes 8-6-5 with 2 clubs. I've got a flush draw with 2 overs and a backdoor straight draw. The big blind checks. It's not a good flop for his range. It's great for mine since I can have all the sets, some overpairs, and plenty of big draws. I down bet to 200 to get folds out of hands like ace king and ace queen. What's funny is that I misremember my hand. At this moment, I believe I have ace 10 of spades, so I'm betting with plans to barrel, particularly if another spade comes out. No need for that. The opponent folds. I believe I just got a bigger bluff through than I actually did. I suppose it doesn't change much either way. I'm back up over starting stack for the first time in a while. Side note, I've got cowboys. Several players have taken a break to eat. I'm in the cutoff and raised to 75. The big blind calls. We're heads up. The dealer puts out 10-4-3 with 2 spades. The big blind takes the initiative and leads for 75. I call. The turn is the deuce of clubs. The big blind bets 150. I call again, having no idea what I'm up against. The river is the 5 of spades. Tons of hands are now beating me. Flush draws get there, and there are 4 of the straight on board. The big blind checks. I don't see how I can go for value here. I check back. The opponent has 8-3 offsuit, which is exactly what I put him on. Fortunately for us, it does not beat kings on this board. Another pot comes our way, and as that continues to happen, I'm getting more and more comfortable. A few hands later, I'm dealt pocket 5s in the big blind. The hijack limps in. The cutoff calls as well. I check. We go 3 ways to the flop. It's king 5-3 rainbow. We have middle set. Unfortunately, this pot is not that large. I need to change that. I lead for 50. When I'm in the big blind and it's a limp pot, I do this a lot with all kinds of draws. I need to balance it out with some strong hands too. The hijack calls, the cutoff folds, or heads up, the turn is a 3, we make a boat. I'm going to continue betting with hopes that my opponent has a 3, a king, or a draw. I make it 125. The hijack calls, I like how this is going so far. The river is a jack. Let's figure out how we can make the most money. To do that, we've got to go over what hands the opponent will have and what actions he'd take with them. The draws have all missed, so if I bet, the opponent isn't going to be able to call with hands like club draws, 6-4, 7-6, ace-4, or ace-deuce. If he has any of those, I definitely want to check to induce a bluff. In addition, if I check, my opponent will almost certainly bet if he has a 3 or king-jack. He may also bet big with a hand like king-10, thinking I could have a number of holdings containing a king with kickers that won't play either. He could potentially get me off a chop. I can then put in a raise, get calls out of at least some of those hands. With all that in mind, I check. Hijack takes the bait and bets 350. I feel like Rod Tidwell. Just want to take a moment for myself to enjoy what's happening. I'm in a massive game in a pot that's getting big with a boat on the river, and everything up to this point in the hand is going exactly how I planned it. I reach over to grab a handful of black chips and announce a raise to 1100. This has to catch the opponent off guard. I have no idea what I might be up against, but given how it's played so far, I surely have the winner, unless the hijack has the last 2 3s in the deck. If that's the case, I'll be hearing from him, and I'll be paying him. The player tanks for a very long time, he gets his chips out, then shows me the money. I turn over the full house. Somehow I'm able to turn a limped pot into the biggest pot of the night for me. The hijack is in disbelief. He takes a gander at his cards, and then tosses a 3 face up. The other card goes into the muck. It's a giant cooler. We get a dream flop and a dream turn to make the maximum. I've been waiting the whole session for a hand like this, where I could bet big for value and get paid off. Finally happens. We win a very nice pot. We're only in for 1 bullet. Currently we're up 1800 on the session. My plan is to keep it going. I've got ace-queen suited under the gun +1, under the gun straddled for 50. I raised to 150. Small blind is the only caller. We go heads up, and the flop is king-jack 10, all spades. We flop a royal No, we don't. It's 9-3 deuce with no spades. Small blind leads for 200. I've got nothing, and I fold. Next, I've got jack 10 suited under the gun. I open to 75. The button calls. The big blind defends. We go 3 ways to the flop. It's king 6 deuce with 2 spades. We've got a flush draw. The big blind checks, I bet 125. The button calls, the big blind also calls. With 2 opponents sticking around, I'm starting to wonder if I even have the best flush draw. The turn is the 8 of hearts, the big blind checks, I slow down and check, the button bets 400. The big blind folds. If I was in position, I'd probably call, but being out of position with a drawing hand that isn't to the nuts after the button is bet into 2 people, I'm not certain what I should do. This is a spot I don't like being in. I fold in order to make my life as easy as possible. Calling other people's bets to hit is usually not a profitable game plan. The last hand they'll go over is another $100 bomb pot. This one is 6-handed. I haven't won one of these all night, and I've had to pay time for everyone 3 separate times, which is about 3 times as much as the average should be. My stack has been dwindling from the high point, so I'm kind of tilted from that too. I've got queen 9 offsuit. The dealer puts out king 9-6 with 2 diamonds. We have middle pair, and not quite as many opponents as the normal bomb pot. It checks to me. Ordinarily, I might check middle pair in this spot. I'm tired of losing these though, and got some okay backdoor draws. I bet 275. Can't even get past 1 person. Cutoff calls, the button calls, small blind calls, and the big blind also calls. I'm officially done with this hand unless somehow I make a monster. The turn is the 3 of hearts. It would usually be kind of a blank, but there's almost no such thing in a bomb pot that has 5 players seeing the turn. We all check. The river is an 8. We all check again. The cutoff shows king 10 to win it. For these stakes, I'm not up that much anymore. If I get stuck again after getting out of the hole I was in earlier, I'd be even more tilted. Time to rack up. Session's finished. I booked a $730 win. I think I was up 1,800 at the high point. I was stuck around 800 at the low point. I just felt myself getting a little frustrated from losing every bomb pot that I played tonight, and didn't really like that last bet that I made with the queen 9. So decided to just book a win, get some confidence going. That's the most that I've ever bought in for any poker game. So feel really good about it. The last time I played a big game, it was 10-20 and I lost 6,000. Nice to win a decent amount here. So I'm gonna grab some food and just call it a night. I take my girlfriend out for some cocktails before dinner at 630 Park, and she surprised me with another birthday dessert. The whole week is phenomenal. I love Drayton Casino. The rooms are amazing. The spa is also worth checking out if you get a chance. I got a hot stone massage before leaving the property. Then I grabbed my favorite burrito on the planet, which is a carne asada macho burrito. Go to a few other favorite spots of mine while I'm in my hometown. It's the perfect birthday trip for me. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a special episode for me. It was fun to take you guys to Northern California where I grew up and show you my birthday week when I was hanging out with friends and family, and to go over a 1025 session, which is the highest stakes that I've ever played. This is actually my second crack at it, but I really enjoyed playing bigger. I'm getting more comfortable, and I plan on doing it a few more times throughout this year. So this is kind of a strange time for everybody. I hope you're all safe. I've got several more videos coming out, so be on the lookout for those. But if you need immediate content, check out 888 Poker's YouTube channel. They do some great stuff. They have hundreds of videos. I just worked with them when I was out in Spain about a month and a half ago. We shot a mini documentary. It's 5 minutes long, but they did an amazing job. It covers my career as a poker player and my career as a YouTuber, and I'm really proud of it. They did a much better job on it than I could have done if I was just doing it by myself. So I'll have a link down below. Be sure to click on that and be sure to subscribe to their channel. All right, guys, hope you're all doing well. Good luck, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.